The night the city fell silent, no one knew they were witnessing the beginning of a case that would spiral into one of the most unsettling manhunts in recent memory. Viewers across the country would later watch FBI surveillance clips and grainy street-level footage, trying to piece together the movements of a man whose name suddenly dominated law enforcement bulletins. The investigation had already crossed state lines, triggered multiple federal alerts, and placed seasoned agents under a pressure they had not felt in years. It begins with the chaotic moments after the incident that set the entire case in motion. Detectives arrived at a scene that felt frozen in time, lights flashing across asphalt still wet from an early drizzle, small crowds gathering behind yellow tape, everyone quietly asking the same question. Who could have executed something so precise, so quick, and so deeply personal? When agents finally reviewed the first wave of collected footage, they realized they weren't dealing with a panicked offender or someone acting impulsively. What they saw instead was calm, practiced movement, someone who understood timing, shadows, camera angles, and exits. That recognition instantly elevated the case beyond a local investigation and sent it straight to federal jurisdiction. The man at the center of it all, whose name spread quickly through interagency reports, appeared to vanish the moment the crime occurred. For days, investigators combed through digital footprints, travel logs, phone data, and the faintest traces of financial activity. What disturbed them most wasn't what they found, but what they didn't. It was as if he had anticipated every method law enforcement would use to track him. He had no active cards, no recent calls, no pings from familiar locations. Even his known associates seemed genuinely unaware of where he had gone. That level of preparedness suggested not only experience, but intention. Inside FBI field offices, agents watched hours of surveillance that captured the suspect's last confirmed movements. In one clip, his silhouette crosses a gas station lot without ever looking up. In another, a camera catches him adjusting the brim of a hat just enough to shadow his face. In yet another, he appears for only 2 seconds at the edge of a freeway underpass before disappearing into traffic. These moments, stitched together, form a mosaic that investigators hoped would reveal patterns, but instead, it left them with more questions. Witnesses described conflicting accounts. Some insisted he appeared anxious, pacing and checking over his shoulder. Others swore he was calm, almost attached, like someone simply running an errand. A few believed he wasn't alone, and claimed they saw a second individual in a dark hoodie shadowing him from a distance. None of these details could be confirmed, and each contradiction dragged the case deeper into uncertainty. What propelled the investigation even further was the discovery of a vehicle linked to him. Found miles away from the original scene, abandoned behind an industrial complex. The car doors were locked. There were no fingerprints, no DNA, no personal belongings, not even a stray hair. It was so meticulously clean that agents began to suspect the vehicle was never meant to lead them anywhere. It was meant to confuse them, a diversion disguised as evidence. Behind closed doors, senior case agents debated whether the suspect had help. If so, who could possibly shield someone under such intense federal scrutiny? Were they looking at a small network or a single skilled offender capable of planning several steps ahead? The absence of mistakes suggested someone who prepared for a long disappearance. Someone who knew how to blend into rural areas, major cities, border towns, anywhere he could pass through without raising suspicion. Then the FBI's behavioral analysis unit studied the footage, body language, crime scene details, and digital silence. Their profile painted a stark picture. A man highly adaptable, used to instability, and potentially armed with knowledge of law enforcement procedures. Someone who didn't run out of fear, but out of strategy. Someone who believed he could outlast the search. Each day that passed without a sighting intensified the urgency. The public was warned to remain alert, especially in regions he had previously lived or worked in. Agents revisited old addresses, interviewed former colleagues, and tracked down distant acquaintances. Some described him as quiet and observant. Others remembered temper. A few spoke of moments that, in hindsight, felt like warnings. Things he said, things he collected, things he refused to talk about. Federal task force units released carefully edited clips of FBI operational footage to the public. Agents moving through wooded areas, helicopters scanning open terrain, tactical teams entering abandoned structures. These visuals weren't just updates. They were a signal that the search had reached a critical phase. Still, the suspect remained unseen. What haunts investigators is a possibility that he is hiding in plain sight, living under a new routine, working a quiet job, avoiding anything that requires identification. People like him, agents warn, don't simply disappear. They adapt. They study the patterns of the agencies pursuing them and create new lives in the shadows just outside detection. As this case continues to unfold, viewers following the investigation are left with an unsettling question. How does someone become this difficult to catch? And more importantly, how long can he stay hidden before someone recognizes him or before he resurfaces in a way no one expects? If you've watched this far, make sure you stay with us. Cases like these develop without warning, and new breakthroughs can come from anywhere, even from viewers who spot a detail investigators missed. Subscribe, turn on notifications so you don't miss the next update, and leave a comment with your thoughts or theories. Your insight might help bring clarity to a case shrouded in shadows and silence.